The ocean does not ask for attention. It takes it, not with noise, but with vastness. It is the only place on Earth where the deeper you go, the louder the silence becomes, the heavier the time feels, and the more fragile the human story appears. There is a pressure that comes not just from the weight of the water, but from the realization that everything we know is built upon the surface of something we do not. And within that abyss, where light is a myth and color becomes memory, live creatures that do not need names, only shadows. The monsters of the ocean are not born to be understood. They are born to exist in a world that rejects our definitions. They are not here to scare us. They are here to remind us that we are not in control. To begin a journey into their world is not to look at animals, but to look at truths raw, ancient, and untamed. Some of them are enormous, terrifying, incomprehensible even when illuminated. Others are no bigger than a coin, yet carry within their biology mechanisms so advanced that even our best engineers still dream of replicating them. We start here, not with a splash, but with a silence, the kind of silence that only exists 200 meters below the surface. This is the twilight zone, the beginning of the descent, where 90% of sunlight is already gone, and creatures begin to glow, not because they want to, but because they have to. Bioluminescence is not a gimmick here. It is language, survival, deception, and art. Imagine a fish that produces its own lure from its forehead to hunt. Imagine a jellyfish that can become invisible by folding itself into the shape of the current. Imagine an octopus that can rewrite its own DNA in real time to adapt. That is not science fiction. That is Tuesday morning in the deep. And still we are only at the edge. One of the first creatures to greet you in this zone might be the barrel-eye fish. Transparent head, tubular eyes, floating still in place like a ghost waiting to be noticed. Its body is a contradiction. Fragile, yet eternal. Gentle, yet alien. It looks like something designed by a surrealist painter who has dared to create a soul without a face. Yet it thrives here, motionless, seeing through the darkness with eyes that look up, not forward. Perhaps that is the first lesson from the abyss. Do not look ahead blindly. Look up, even when buried. But as you move deeper, you start to lose the idea of shape. You forget what defines a monster. Is it size, intention, teeth? Because if it is about horror, then the fangtooth fish wins easily. It is not large. It is not fast. But it holds the record for the largest teeth relative to body size in the entire ocean. Its head is all mouth. Its eyes are the size of warning signs. It swims like it has seen things no mind should hold. And perhaps it has. In the ocean, memory is stored not in photographs or books, but in scars, instincts, and mutations. Every monster down here is the result of pressure, literally. The deeper you go, the more pounds per square inch press against you. A human body would collapse. A submarine must be engineered with perfection. But these creatures, these elegant nightmares, are built from softness, from flexibility, from systems that do not fight the pressure but embrace it. What does that say about us? We build armor. They build surrender. Maybe that is why they survive. Go down another 1,000 meters and you might find the gulper eel, also called the pelican eel. It is not a creature as much as it is a mouth with a tail. Its jaw can open wide enough to swallow prey larger than its own body. It lights up with bioluminescent flashes when agitated. It looks like a hallucination, as if the ocean is making fun of logic. And still, it works. It survives. No heartbroken poet, no tortured artist, no genius inventor has come close to designing something as absurdly perfect as the gulper eel. That is the rule here. If it looks impossible, it probably lives here. But monsters are not always moving. Some are still, some are patient, some are ancient. Consider the vampire squid. Despite its name, it does not suck blood. It lives in the oxygen minimum zone, a layer so deep and poorly oxygenated that most creatures cannot survive. But the vampire squid does, not by aggression, but by efficiency. It barely moves. It drifts. It has special hemocyanin-rich blood that allows it to absorb oxygen, even in the scarcest environment. When threatened, it ejects glowing mucus instead of ink, turning fear into spectacle. This is not a monster. This is a lesson in grace under pressure. The abyss does not waste. It transforms, and in that transformation, we find creatures that seem mythical. At 4,000 meters, we meet the abyssal gigantism where some species, due to pressure and time, have grown far larger than their shallow water relatives. The giant isopod is one such being. Imagine a cockroach the size of a cat. It feeds on whale carcasses, shipwreck leftovers, and whatever else the deep throws down. It is not pretty. It does not try to be. It is efficient. It is unapologetic. It is the janitor of the dark, and that is its power. When we call these creatures monsters, we are only revealing how little we understand about balance. The ocean does not create horror. We project it. It creates adaptation. The gulper, the vampire, the barrel eye, they are not villains. They are versions of us if we had lived in darkness for millions of years. That is why looking into their eyes feels like looking back in time. Like remembering something we were never told but always knew. As you reach 6,000 meters, the Haddle Zone begins. Named after Hades, the Greek underworld. Here, only the most resilient survive. The pressure is over 1,000 times that of the surface. Temperatures drop to near freezing. Food is scarce. Light is absent. And still, the amphipods flourish. Tiny crustaceans, translucent and determined. They can digest wood, survive in trenches, and outlast machines. If the surface world vanished tomorrow, they would remain, patiently cleaning the skeletons of giants. But perhaps the most terrifying monster in the ocean is not a creature at all. It is the silence, the kind that absorbs sound, the kind that amplifies thought. Down here, there are no echoes, no distractions, only you and the dark. And that is where the real confrontation begins. Every monster described so far is real. Documented, filmed, studied. And yet, they still belong to legend because most of the ocean remains unexplored. That is not poetry. That is fact. We have mapped more of Mars than of our own seabeds. Every year, we discover new species, some small, some immense, some impossible. So what else is down there, waiting? The megalodon once ruled these waters, a shark the size of a bus. It vanished, or so we say. But the ocean does not erase. It buries. It hides. It protects. Perhaps the monsters are not gone. Perhaps they are simply waiting for silence. In the next descent, we will go deeper, past myth, past light, into the trench, where truth wears teeth. The ocean does not need to prove anything. It only waits to be witnessed. And when you finally see it, truly see it, you will no longer fear the monsters. You will fear forgetting them. Because to forget them is to forget what we are made of. Not cities, not algorithms, pressure, adaptation, darkness, and survival. The further you descend, the more you begin to realize that the ocean is not a place. It is a state of surrender. The surface teaches you about movement, about light, about reflection. But the deep, the real deep, teaches you about stillness, about patience, about things that exist outside the urgency of time. At 1,000 meters below, you no longer belong to the world of humans. There are no seasons here, no storms, no sunrise or moonlight. Time slows not because the clock stops ticking, but because nothing down here is in a hurry. You are no longer diving into water. You are diving into memory, into myth, into the unspoken design of ancient biology. And that is where you meet the second kind of monster, the invisible architects. These are the creatures that shape entire ecosystems without ever showing themselves. They are not big. They are not scary. But they are powerful in the way that only the unseen can be. Consider the siphonophore. It is not one animal, but a colony of thousands of individuals called zooids that function together as a single being. Some zooids handle movement, others digestion, others reproduction. Each part is dependent on the whole. The siphonophore is like an orchestra made of flesh, light, and silence. Some can grow longer than blue whales, and yet they remain unknown to most of the world. You do not find them. You feel them. Their glowing threads stretch like nerves through the water, pulsing with bioluminescence, coiling through the dark like thoughts through a subconscious mind. And if the siphonophore is the architect, then the comb jelly is the illusionist. At first glance, it seems simple, a gelatinous creature floating aimlessly. But under the right angle, when light catches it just so, its body ignites with rainbow patterns that look like living fiber optics. This iridescence is not just beauty. It is a function of its cilia, tiny hair-like structures it uses to swim. Each beat of the cilia refracts light, creating waves of color that ripple like music you can see. There is no aggression, no speed, no violence. Only the hypnotic dance of biology tuned to the frequency of elegance. And then there is the tripod fish, a creature that stands on three long fins at the bottom of the ocean floor, perfectly still, waiting. Its eyes have degenerated from disuse. It does not hunt. It waits for food to come to it, sensing with long feelers. In a world that glorifies motion and noise, this fish is a monument to stillness. Strategy is patience. Its weapon is silence. It is what happens when evolution stops believing in speed. And sometimes that is the most terrifying form of power. But the monsters are not always subtle. Some of them are built like nightmares dreamt by gravity itself. The giant squid is one of them. For centuries it was a legend, a story told by sailors too drunk or too afraid to be believed. They called it the Kraken, the ship killer, the tentacled god of the deep. It was only recently that we captured footage of it in its natural habitat. And even then, it appeared like a ghost, sudden, graceful, enormous. Its eyes are the largest of any animal on Earth, capable of detecting the faintest glimmers of light in total darkness. Its tentacles are lined with suckers, each armed with sharp rings that rotate like drills. It can grow longer than a city bus and move with a speed that defies logic. But it does not roar. It does not chase. It emerges. It watches. It reminds you that some monsters are not born from fear. They are born from scale, from solitude, from the cold mathematics of evolution, unchecked. And as you fall deeper, the ocean gives you something even stranger, the monsters that rewrite the definition of life itself. In the Hadal trenches, more than 10,000 meters deep, there are organisms that challenge the very limits of biology. Take the amphipod Hirondelia gigas. It lives in the Mariana Trench, where pressure exceeds 1,100 atmospheres. To survive, it produces unique aluminum-based compounds in its shell, protecting it from the crushing force. No vertebrate could endure this. No machine has lasted long, but this tiny crustacean thrives, not because it is strong, but because it is perfectly adapted. It does not resist the pressure. It is the pressure. And nearby, the snailfish floats with a body so soft it would melt at the surface. Its bones are barely bones. Its flesh is almost gelatin. And yet, it has been filmed swimming calmly in the deepest points known to man, unfazed, almost smiling. The monster here is not the creature. It is the idea that softness is weakness. The ocean teaches you otherwise. The softer you are, the deeper you go. But the monsters are not just in the water. They are in us, in our ignorance, in our arrogance. We throw plastic, oil, and noise into the sea like it is a bin, not a biome, and the ocean responds not with anger but with silence. That is more terrifying, because silence is what happens before collapse. The creatures adapt. They always do. But at what cost? There are now jellyfish that thrive in dead zones where oxygen is depleted. There are mutant crustaceans found with microplastics embedded in their bodies. There are whales singing louder each year just to be heard over our ships. The real monster may not have gills or fangs. It may have hands. It may build cities. It may believe it owns the world. But the ocean has never belonged to anyone. It is not a resource. It is a realm. And its monsters are not villains. They are survivors. Keep descending, and you find the sea pigs, not pigs, not even remotely close. These are soft-bodied echinoderms that crawl across the seafloor using hydraulic limbs. They feed on detritus, the decaying matter that falls from above like snow. They are strange, pink, and slow, but they are vital. Without them, the ocean would choke on its own waste. They are the cleaners of the abyss. They do not ask for praise. They do not appear in documentaries. But they are the reason the deep continues to breathe. That is the thing about monsters here. They are not what you expect. They are not loud. They are not evil. They are mirrors. They show us what it takes to survive without light, without comfort, without applause. And in doing so, they reveal how fragile our definitions are. What makes a monster? Is it size? Is it fear? Or is it simply the unknown dressed in unfamiliar skin? Because if the unknown is the only requirement, then the ocean is full of monsters, and perhaps so are we. We fear the things we do not understand. But the deep does not fear. It absorbs, it waits, it adapts, and that, above all, is its final lesson. There is no creature too strange, no darkness too deep. Only the question, how will you evolve? There comes a moment, as you continue to descend into the cold cathedral of the abyss, when the concept of life as you know it begins to dissolve. You stop expecting colors, and the dark becomes your only language. You stop searching for shapes, and instead learn to read movement. At this depth, pressure is not just a force measured in atmospheres. It is the dominant architect, the invisible sculptor that molds every rib, every organ, every instinct. Welcome to the kingdom of the unknown, the lair of deep-sea giants, glass-boned ghosts, and anomalies so strange that even the laws of biology whisper here instead of speaking aloud. And among these creatures, rising from the silence, like a myth breathing in reverse, emerges one of the most elusive and chilling monsters of all, the frilled shark. It is not a modern animal. It is a relic, a living fossil, unchanged for over 80 million years, swimming with the posture of an eel and the jaw of a memory. Its mouth opens with a curvature that defies vertebrate logic, lined with over 300 needle-like teeth, arranged in rows that resemble the gears of a forgotten machine. It does not rush its prey. It coils, it waits, and then it lunges with a flexibility that seems borrowed from nightmares. The frilled shark is not terrifying because of what it does. It is terrifying because it should not exist, and yet it does. It is not from our time. It is from the time before time cared about mammals, but it thrives in the dark, where evolution favors the persistent over the pretty. Then, there is the black dragonfish, a creature as ominous as its name and twice as strange. It carries its own light, flickering from photophores scattered along its body like bioelectric jewelry. The females grow long, slender, predatory, with fang-like teeth that curve backward into a mouth that is too large for its own skull. But what truly earns it a place among monsters is what it does with light. Unlike many bioluminescent creatures that glow blue or green, the wavelengths that travel best in water, the black dragonfish emits red light. This gives it an evolutionary advantage, because few creatures in the deep can even see red. It is, in essence, invisible to its prey, while casting a spotlight on them. To glow in a frequency your enemies cannot detect is not just smart. It is predatory poetry. But not all monsters are born to hunt. Some are born to deceive, to mimic, to become the illusion. The mimic octopus is one such shapeshifter, found in shallower depths than its abyssal cousins. It earns its place in this tale not by fear but by performance. It can rearrange its arms, change its color, and adopt the shapes and movements of other animals. One moment, it is a flounder, gliding flat against the sand. The next, it raises two arms and becomes a lionfish, dangerous and spiny. Or it snakes its limbs behind and swims like a banded sea snake. It is an actor in a theater of predators, using impersonation as both shield and sword. Watching it is like watching deception itself evolve into art. And yet, the deeper you go, the less even this kind of cleverness matters. At depths beyond 6,000 meters, where light has never existed and will never arrive, life simplifies. Not in function, but in truth. You find the Haddle snailfish, translucent, soft, delicate. It is the deepest living fish ever recorded, thriving where temperatures hover just above freezing and pressure would flatten most submarines. It has no use for eyesight. It senses vibration, chemical signals, shifts in the current. It is as much water as it is creature. You could mistake it for a ghost, a thought, a jelly wrapped in logic. And yet, it is alive, not just surviving, but thriving. That is the lesson down here. The monsters are not grotesque. They are efficient. They are not horrifying. They are reminders of how small our imagination really island. Because every time we build a machine to reach new depths, we find something that breaks the script. A fish with antifreeze in its blood. A worm that feeds on hydrogen sulfide near volcanic vents. A crustacean that can digest wood in complete darkness. And at the heart of this world lies the most alien force of all, the deep-sea hydrothermal vents. These are not monsters. These are environments. Cracks in the ocean floor where scalding water erupts, rich with minerals and chemicals toxic to most life. And yet, entire ecosystems bloom here, independent of sunlight. They rely on chemosynthesis bacteria that convert sulfur compounds into energy, forming the base of a food chain utterly disconnected from the sunday. Giant tube worms grow taller than men, with blood-red plumes and no mouths. Blind shrimp cluster around the heat, their shells reflecting infrared. Here, in the most hostile corners of the planet, life rewrites the rules. Sunlight is not the source. Carbon is not king. Heat, metal, and pressure become the ingredients of vitality. The monsters that live here are not villains. They are miracles, and yet we know so little about them. Each expedition into the abyss is a confession of ignorance. Every new discovery is an apology for arrogance. We are explorers, yes, but also trespassers. The ocean was here before our maps, before our gods, before our fears had names. And in its depths, it stores not just monsters but metaphors, because what are we, if not creatures of pressure, of darkness, of adaptation? We think the monsters are out there, but perhaps they are also within. Our fears, our instincts, our ability to survive what we do not understand. The ocean is not haunted. It is honest. It hides nothing. It simply waits for us to look deeper. And the deeper we go, the more we find that the real monsters are not the ones with teeth, but the ones with silence, with patience, with no need to explain themselves to anyone. That is where we are headed. Into the trench of truth, where monsters wear the mask of nature's perfection. The deeper you fall, the less you rely on your eyes, and the more you depend on your intuition. Sound changes, light disappears, up and down lose meaning. At depths where no sunlight has touched for over 100 million years, you are not just exploring an environment. You are crossing into a different logic, one where evolution has taken liberties unthinkable on land. One where monsters do not roar, they shimmer. They do not hunt, they wait. They do not kill, they endure. Welcome now to the realm of the gelatinous empire, where the borders between body and water dissolve, and the difference between predator and prey is measured in transparency and stillness. The most striking citizen of this empire is the giant larvation. It sounds absurd. Giant and larva do not belong in the same sentence. And yet, here it is. A small, tadpole-like creature that builds a mucus house bigger than a human. It filters water through layers of this transparent structure, capturing particles and nourishing itself. When the house clogs, it abandons it and builds a new one. This occurs multiple times a day. Imagine a creature the size of your finger, building cathedrals of snot to filter its food from a liquid sky. It is ridiculous. It is brilliant. It is survival redefined. Floating near this architect is the barrel-eye fish, a creature that should not exist outside a hallucination. Its head is transparent. Not figuratively, literally. Through its clear dome, you can see its eyes, which are not where you would expect. What look like eyes on the front of its face are actually nostrils. The real eyes are bright green orbs inside its skull, capable of rotating upward to track prey silhouetted against the faintest ambient light. It is the kind of design that makes you question whether nature was being experimental or just showing off. In either case, the result is unforgettable. But not all monsters are new. Some are echoes. The coelacanth is a fish thought extinct for over 65 million years until it was discovered alive in the 20th century. It is a walking fossil with lobed fins that resemble primitive limbs, moving like a slow ballet dancer trapped in a dream. Its presence in the modern world is not just an anomaly. It is a message. Extinction is not always the end. Sometimes it is camouflage. And while the coelacanth reminds us of history's persistence, the gulper eel reminds us of evolution's sense of humor. With a body that seems stitched together from three separate ideas, the gulper eel is mostly mouth. Its jaw can unhinge to swallow prey larger than itself, and its stomach stretches like elastic to accommodate the feast. It uses a glowing lure at the tip of its tail to attract attention, like a fisherman advertising the end of curiosity. But its greatest weapon is deception. It looks slow, clumsy, even harmless until it is not. And then, like many abyssal predators, it disappears into the dark before the memory of it has settled. Perhaps the most haunting creature you meet here is the vampire squid. Its name is misleading. It is not a squid. It is not a vampire. But it is one of the most alien beings on the planet. Its body is soft, covered in velvety skin, and its arms are connected by a webbing that resembles a cloak. When threatened, it turns itself inside out, exposing rows of spiny projections that look like teeth but are not. It does not ink like other cephalopods. Instead, it releases a cloud of bioluminescent mucus that glows in the dark like a phantom smoke screen. It does not chase. It does not flee. It confuses. It dances. It dissolves. And just when you think you've understood the rhythm of these depths, something breaks it, something massive, something ancient. You feel it before you see it. A shift in current. A silence that deepens. Then, slowly, like a memory rising from the bones of the sea, you encounter the sleeper shark. Greenland sharks are among the longest living vertebrates on Earth. Some individuals swimming today were born before Shakespeare. They move so slowly it's as if time itself respects their pace. Their flesh is toxic. Their eyes often host parasitic worms. And yet they thrive in cold, oxygen-poor waters where most creatures would perish. They are not monsters because they are dangerous. They are monsters because they are timeless. They carry with them the weight of centuries, drifting through darkness with the indifference of a glacier. And somewhere near them, lurking like a punctuation mark at the end of a forgotten sentence, lives the colossal squid. Larger than the giant squid in mass, it remains one of the least observed animals on Earth. Its eyes are the size of basketballs. Its arms bear rotating hooks. It has never been filmed alive in its natural habitat. But its beaks have been found inside the stomachs of whales. Scars on the heads of sperm whales suggest titanic battles far below the surface. It is the shadow behind the curtain, the unanswered question, the pause in every confident declaration about what we know. For every monster we discover, there are 10 we still imagine. The ocean is not empty. It is waiting. And with every descent, we are reminded that the universe is not only above us, it is beneath us. In this underworld, the rules are rewritten. Strength is not size. Power is not aggression. Beauty is not symmetry. Every creature is a compromise between pressure and purpose. Every adaptation is a line of poetry written in muscle, light, and silence. The monsters are not evil. They are exquisite. They are expressions of survival under the harshest possible conditions. They are the dreamscape of evolution, unchecked by human vanity, undisturbed by human fear. And so, as you float deeper, past the point where submarines hesitate and light refuses to follow, you find not horror but humility. Because these monsters do not live beneath us, they live beyond us. And in that realization, there is a kind of peace. Because if they can survive here, perhaps we can survive anywhere. You just have to be willing to change, to adapt, to glow. There is a threshold in the deep that is not marked by pressure or temperature, but by silence so complete that it feels alive. You feel it humming through your bones, like a lullaby written in tectonic language. This is not silence as you know it. It is the silence of ancient movement, of forgotten gravity, of the deep, slow breath. The creatures that inhabit this stratum are not bound by time as we are. They are shaped by absence, by stillness, by the gravitational pull of a world that never needed light to begin with. You begin to notice that shape itself is negotiable down here. Boundaries blur. Front and back become relative. Creatures drift rather than swim, hover rather than chase, emit light not to be seen but to understand what surrounds them. This is the dominion of gelatinous predators and spectral scavengers, where the monstrous is not defined by violence, but by mystery. One of the strangest beings you may encounter in this region is the comb jelly or ctenophore, a translucent organism that seems built from glass and rainbows. It moves using rows of tiny cilia that scatter light into pulses of iridescent color, like a living prism floating through ink. It is not a jellyfish. It lacks stinging cells, but it is a predator, capturing tiny plankton with sticky tentacles and feeding in total grace. Watching a comb jelly drift is like watching music made solid. Its elegance is unsettling in a place where elegance should have drowned. Not far from these silent dancers, you may see a flash of something stranger still, the siphonophore. It is not one animal, but many. A colony of specialized zooids, individual organisms so integrated they cannot live apart, form one massive, coordinated body. Some handle propulsion, others digest food, others handle reproduction. Some siphonophores stretch over 40 meters long, longer than blue whales, yet remain so thin they vanish if the light angle changes. It is not a monster. It is a consensus, a democracy of biology, a reminder that sometimes unity creates scale far greater than individuality ever could. But not all creatures in the deep are made of such abstraction. Some are all substance, all mass, all power. Take the giant isopod, the deep-sea cousin of the pillbug. It is a tank with legs, armored, lumbering, and entirely disproportionate to what we expect from the bottom of the ocean. They feed on the remains of whales and other fallen giants, using their powerful jaws to break through thick skin and bone. Their entire existence revolves around waiting for death to fall from above. They are not hunters, they are opportunists. But in the deep, patience is the ultimate weapon. And perhaps nothing in this abyssal realm is more symbolic of that patience than the deep-sea anglerfish. There are many species, but all share one truth. Their horror is magnetic. A grotesque female, often the size of a football, floats with a luminous lure growing from her forehead. The light dances, pulses, tempts. Her teeth are jagged, translucent, long enough to pierce prey before it realizes it's close. But the most astonishing feature is what happens with the males. They are born tiny, feeble, incomplete. When they find a female, they bite into her body and fuse. Their bloodstreams merge. Their skin dissolves into hers. He becomes nothing more than a pair of testes on her side, a permanent appendage. It is not romance, it is assimilation. The deep does not have space for chivalry, only survival. And if we speak of survival, we must speak of one of the most enduring mysteries in the deep, the Mariana snailfish. Found at depths exceeding 8,000 meters, it holds the record for the deepest known fish. It should not exist. Its body is soft as jelly, with no swim bladder, no bones strong enough to resist the crushing pressure. And yet it thrives. Its DNA has evolved unique proteins that stabilize cell structures at extreme depths. Its enzymes function in conditions that would destroy ours. It is not beautiful. It is not dangerous. But it is a masterclass in persistence. If the abyss were a university, the snailfish would be the professor of adaptation. Beyond these beings, deeper still, lies a realm without oxygen, where methane and hydrogen sulfide bubble from undersea seeps. Here, tube worms grow meters long, with no mouths, no digestive tracts, surviving entirely through symbiosis with chemosynthetic bacteria. Clams and mussels cluster around these cold seeps like guests at a banquet that defies every rule of food. Crabs with furry legs walk among gas plumes, their exoskeletons dusted with bacterial colonies. This is not just life without sunlight. It is life without compromise. Evolution has gone rogue. The laws of surface biology do not apply. Every expedition here is a step into science fiction. But these creatures are not fiction. They are proof. Proof that the rules we write are not the rules that govern. That the blueprint for life is more flexible, more chaotic, more wonderful than we dared believe. In these depths, the monsters are teachers. They do not seek us. They do not flee us. They simply are. And in their silent presence, we are humbled. Because we, the species that split the atom and reached the moon, still do not understand what lives 5 miles below the surface of our own planet. We send probes to Mars, but not to the trenches. We launch satellites, but neglect the black between the coral and the crust. And perhaps this is not a failure. Perhaps it is a sign that some mysteries are meant to remain monstrous, that some truths only exist when shrouded in pressure and darkness, that we are not meant to understand everything, only to keep diving. The monsters of the ocean are not nightmares. They are blueprints of resilience. They are poems written in flesh. They are mirrors we do not want to recognize. And yet, they wait for us. Still, silent, sovereign. You have made it past the layers of light, past the regions where the last memories of sunlight flicker like dying stars, into the place where time unravels and pressure writes new laws. The deep ocean is no longer a location. It is a force. It bends everything light, sound, shape, thought into forms that defy classification. Here, the monstrous is not the exception. It is the rule. What survives is not what dominates, but what disappears best. And in these depths, you meet the creatures that are not only rare but impossibly patient. They do not hunt like wolves. They wait like tombs. Meet the tripod fish. Imagine a creature so resigned to stillness that it evolved legs not to walk but to stand, motionless in the pitch black. With elongated fins that stretch downward like stilts, the tripod fish rests on the seafloor as if suspended in time. Its eyes are gone useless in this darkness. Instead, it feels the world through currents, through vibrations, through instinct sharpened by isolation. It waits, it listens, it strikes without warning. In this kingdom, stillness is strategy, and motion is a mistake. Floating nearby is something far stranger. The ghost shark, or chimera. It is not a shark in the modern sense, but a relic from a lineage older than dinosaurs. It glides without sound, its body pale and spectral, like bone wrapped in silk. Its face is grotesque, yet fascinating, jawless, with a long, whip-like tail and wings that do not flap but undulate. In its presence, you do not feel fear. As if you are watching something that remembers the shape of ancient oceans. It does not flee you. It does not greet you. It simply continues as it always has, untouched by our questions. Below this spectral world lies the domain of the benthic giants. One of the most surprising is the abyssal gigantism of amphipods, small crustaceans that, in the deep sea, grow to the size of a human hand. Under extreme pressure and low temperature, their bodies do not shrink. They swell. It is the opposite of what we expect. In most environments, scarcity means minimalism. But here, the ocean gives its monsters size, as if to compensate for their loneliness. These amphipods are scavengers, tearing into dead whales and fallen squid with a frenzy that seems violent, but is merely efficient. They do not waste. They do not hesitate. They are the janitors of the deep, keeping decay from becoming chaos. And then there is the faceless cusk eel. It is not literally faceless, but its appearance is so featureless, so devoid of expression, that it earned the name. Its body is long, gelatinous, with skin stretched thin over muscle. It swims with a strange rhythm, like a whisper that lost its direction. Its mouth is hidden beneath its body, and its head curves downward, always downward, as if ashamed of being seen. It is a reminder that in the deep, beauty is irrelevant. Function writes the script. Everything else is excess. Not far from this eel, you encounter the deep-sea jellyfish known as Deepsteria. It has no tentacles, no stingers, just a translucent bell that moves like a haunted parachute through the dark. Inside its body, you see flashes of trapped creatures still writhing, their outlines distorted by the jelly's soft walls. It digests them slowly, not with malice but with silence. Watching it is like watching a soft trapdoor close over time itself. But perhaps the most mesmerizing of all is the deep-sea hatchetfish. It is small, barely the length of a finger, but its body is built like a weapon. Thin, metallic, with eyes that look upward, always upward, waiting for the silhouette of prey. It produces its own light from photophores along its belly, not to shine, but to erase its own shadow. This is counter-illumination. It hides in plain sight by glowing just enough to blend in with the faint light from above. It is a genius of deception. It survives not by hiding, but by pretending to be invisible. And it works. In the deep, truth is not survival. Illusion Island, you begin to notice that many of these monsters are solitary. There are no schools, no packs, no herds. Just one life drifting, pulsing, enduring. They are not lonely because they are alone. They are alone because they cannot afford to share. Down here, companionship costs energy. Trust costs blood. Every encounter is either food or danger. And so, life drifts separately, linked not by community but by quiet recognition. You also start to feel that direction itself is irrelevant. There is no up, no down, no north. Only pressure, lightlessness, and the slow pull of currents that do not ask for your opinion. The creatures you see are not moving forward. They are simply existing. And in their stillness, you see a kind of truth we've forgotten. A lesson carved into cartilage and gelatin and bioluminescent code. That speed is not progress. That noise is not communication. That survival is not conquest. It is continuity. Just when you think the parade of horrors is ending, you meet something so surreal that it breaks the logic of biology. The Dumbo octopus, named for its ear-like fins that resemble the Disney elephant, it flaps gently through the water like a soft toy come to life. But do not be fooled. It lives deeper than any other known octopus species. It does not ink. It does not flee. It simply folds itself and sinks when threatened, becoming part of the darkness. It feeds by swallowing prey whole. It does not kill with violence. It kills with calm. Watching it, you feel something strange, not fear, not wonder, but warmth, as if even in this abyss, gentleness can survive, as if even monsters can be soft. That is the paradox of the deep. The deeper you go, the more contradictions you encounter. Creatures that look delicate but endure crushing pressure. Creatures that seem harmless but are expert killers. Creatures that defy your expectations not once, but constantly. And in this world, you start to realize that the ocean is not hiding its monsters from us. It is hiding us from its monsters. Because if we understood them, if we truly understood what it takes to survive here, we would have to admit how fragile we are, how dependent we are on light, on sound, on certainty. And the ocean is none of these things. The ocean is silence, darkness, and the unbearable truth that life finds a way, even when we cannot imagine how. It adapts, it shrinks, it glows, it waits. And above all, it never apologizes for what it becomes. The monsters of the ocean are not mistakes. They are solutions, not symbols of fear, but proofs of persistence. And they are waiting, not for us. You are no longer measuring depth in meters. You are measuring it in myth. The further you descend, the more your instruments become irrelevant. Compasses twitch. Clocks lie. Even your heartbeat begins to forget its rhythm, syncing instead with the slow pulses of the abyssal plain. You are in the bathypelagic zone now, between 1,000 and 4,000 meters deep, though numbers start to lose meaning here. You are not swimming. You are falling. Falling through ink, through gravity, through layers of time where no sun has ever reached. And waiting for you in this silence is a monster whose name echoes from legend, the giant squid. For centuries it was a sailor's hallucination, a kraken of drunken stories and foggy fears. But the giant squid is real, a colossal invertebrate with eyes the size of dinner plates and tentacles lined with suckers that have teeth. Not metaphorical teeth, actual razor-sharp rings designed to grip and shred. It has no bones. It swims backwards. It bleeds blue. Its brain is shaped like a donut, and its esophagus passes through the center. If it swallows something too big, it could give itself brain damage. And yet, it survives. It thrives in a realm where nothing should. It is not aggressive, but it is powerful. So powerful, in fact, that its only known predator is another monster, the sperm whale. And when these titans meet in the dark, they do not fight with fury. They wrestle in silence, in a slow-motion death dance that scars them both. The whales come to the surface with sucker marks that circle their heads like symbols from an alien alphabet. Neither always wins. Sometimes, only the deep wins. You might think nothing could rival this beast, but just as your mind adjusts, you are reminded that the ocean never runs out of scale. Meet the colossal squid. Similar to the giant, but stockier, more aggressive, armed with rotating hooks on its tentacles and a beak that could crack bone. It is heavier, slower, deeper. Its eyes are the largest known in the animal kingdom, over 30 centimeters across, because down here, seeing is everything. Or rather, sensing what is not meant to be seen. It has only been encountered a handful of times, mostly in the stomachs of dead whales. It does not come up. It does not seek light. It is a sovereign of the dark. And then, just as your imagination is overwhelmed, the deep plays a different card. Not a giant, not a killer, but a whisper of madness, the barrel-eye fish. This fish is tiny, almost fragile, but it has a transparent head. Inside that dome of jelly, two tubular eyes float like green periscopes, rotating inside its skull to look upward through its own forehead. Its mouth is fixed in a permanent frown. Its movements are slow, careful, deliberate. It does not hunt. It observes. It waits for jellyfish, tracking them through the darkness, memorizing their dance before striking. Watching the barrel eye is like watching a dream forget how to end. It is science fiction made flesh. And it reminds you, the deep does not only scale size, it scales weirdness. You begin to understand that the monsters of the ocean are not mistakes. They are solutions to equations we have never solved. Equations of pressure, of lightlessness, of stillness, of eternity. These beings are not primitive. They are perfect, and their perfection is terrifying. Consider the vampire squid, with a name stolen from horror movies. It is neither squid nor octopus. It has traits of both, plus a cloak of webbed arms that it flares when threatened, turning itself into a writhing ball of tentacles and spikes. Its body is deep red. Its eyes glow blue or red depending on the light, and instead of ink, it releases a glowing cloud of bioluminescent mucus. It doesn't kill. It doesn't chase. It simply floats, feeding on marine snow, the constant drizzle of dead particles from above. It survives not by dominance, but by disappearance. Its monsterhood is defensive, and somehow that makes it more unsettling. Because here is a creature that evolved not to hunt or escape, but simply to endure without notice. And in the deep, endurance is divinity. Floating in these depths, you also meet the gulper eel, with a head that is almost half its body and a mouth that can open wide enough to swallow things larger than itself. It looks like a mistake, like something nature started and forgot to finish. But when it swims, you understand. Its body undulates like a ribbon of shadow. Its tail glows. Its jaws are not for biting. They are nets. It drifts with its mouth open, catching whatever floats by. No teeth, no chase. Just hunger sculpted into geometry. There is no grace, only function. But then, you see something so elegant, it breaks the pattern. The glass octopus. Its body is almost entirely transparent. You can see its brain, its digestive tract, its nerves, all floating inside like organs in a chemistry set. It is nearly invisible in the water, which is exactly the point. In a place where light is currency, invisibility is wealth. The glass octopus is wealthy. It moves with a fluidity that defies mechanics. It is both there and not there, both seen and not seen. And in its presence, you begin to feel something unexpected, envy, because here is a creature that has mastered both camouflage and clarity. It hides everything and reveals everything at once. The ocean does not stop. It keeps opening new doors, each one stranger than the last. You meet the fangtooth, a fish so disproportionate it seems cursed. Its teeth are so long it cannot close its mouth fully. Its skin is armored like volcanic rock. It swims with a grimace, not from pain, but because evolution gave it tools too big for its own face. And yet, it is a hunter, one of the most successful in its range. Not because of speed, but because of sensors so sensitive they can detect vibrations from meters away. It is ugly, but its ugliness works. And in the deep, beauty is irrelevant. Efficiency is everything. The ocean teaches you that monsters are not errors. They are optimizations. They are the endpoint of pressure and time. They are what happens when the only goal is to last. And they last. Through eras, through extinctions, through the rise and fall of continents. They were here before us. They will be here after. And perhaps they are not even waiting. They are simply continuing. Continuing in silence. Continuing in pressure. Continuing in forms that do not apologize for their shape, their hunger, their strangeness. They do not care if we understand. They do not care if we fear. They do not even notice we exist. Because in their world, we are the myth. We are the impossible. We are the visitors. And the deeper you go, the more you realize this is not their world. This is the world. We are the ones who left it. You are now beneath the bones of the earth, beneath the trenches that split the ocean floor like ancient scars carved by tectonic wrath. You are beyond the reach of sound, and beyond the meaning of silence. This is the Haddle Zone, a place named after Hades, and for good reason. It stretches deeper than Mount Everest is tall. It is not a zone for living things. It is a place where pressure flattens identity and time forgets itself. Yet, life exists here. Not just life, monsters, survivors. Miracles that do not ask for permission to exist. You begin with the amphipod, but not the kind you've seen before. This is Hirandelia gigas, a crustacean that lives in the deepest parts of the Mariana Trench, more than 11,000 meters below the surface. It is tiny, unassuming, almost comical in shape, but it holds a secret. Its body is armored with aluminum, not calcium, not silica. Aluminum, extracted from the mud through a chemical process unique to its biology. It is the only known animal on Earth to do this. You are no longer looking at a creature. You are looking at a riddle in exoskeleton form. Floating beside it is a snailfish, a name so gentle it deceives you. This creature holds the record for being the deepest living fish ever discovered. Its body is soft, nearly gelatinous, because bones do not survive here. Its skin is translucent. Its face is oddly human, with small eyes and a flattened mouth. But it smiles with patience, not joy. It moves slowly, not because it is weak, but because there is no urgency in a world where everything is slow. There are no predators here. There is only pressure. And the snailfish has made peace with it. It does not fight the abyss. It molds to it. You begin to realize that every creature here has traded something. Sight for pressure tolerance, speed for stillness, strength for chemistry. The Haddle monsters are not strong in the way we define it. They are strong in the way the earth itself is strong, silently, massively, relentlessly. You pass near hydrothermal vents. These are not animals, but they are living gates, black smokers, towers of mineral spires spewing water hotter than lava into near-freezing depths. Here, where sunlight has never touched, life thrives, not with photosynthesis, but with chemosynthesis. Bacteria feed on sulfur, forming the base of a food chain that should not exist. Tubeworms grow taller than a human, with blood-red plumes and no mouths. Crabs with hairs on their claws that farm bacteria. Mussels that filter poison into sustenance. This is not evolution. This is invention. Every vent is a city. Every plume, a cathedral. Every organism, a pioneer of impossible existence. You drift onward and find the zombie worm, Ossidax. A creature with no eyes, no mouth, no stomach, and no shame. It feeds on the bones of dead whales by secreting acid and absorbing the resulting slurry through root-like tendrils. It is, by all definitions, a monster. And yet, it is also a cleaner, a recycler, a necessary force. It has evolved symbiotic bacteria to break down what it cannot. It is not just living. It is collaborating. It is building alliances in a place where even atoms feel alone. But the most disturbing revelation comes not from what you see, but from what you begin to suspect. There is something here that defies even imagination. Evidence of life that may not be based on DNA. self-replicating structures found inside deep rocks, carbon chains behaving like RNA in temperatures and pressures that should dissolve them. These are not confirmed organisms, but they are not organisms either. They are possibilities, blueprints, whispers of a biochemistry we have never imagined. Life, as the universe might define it, not just as Earth does. You now see the monsters of the ocean not as animals but as messages, messages from nature to arrogance. Proof that the rules we believe in are only valid in the thin layer where we breathe. Below that, the rules are rewritten, and the ocean has written them in ink blacker than space. You pass over a trench so deep it feels like falling into sleep. The walls are steep, jagged, littered with fallen boulders the size of cathedrals. Here lives the Haddle sea cucumber. It looks like a gelatinous slug with legs, but it is more than that. It is a scavenger that turns the seafloor into a farm, digesting sediment and releasing it cleaner. It has adapted not just to pressure, but to hopelessness. In a world of almost zero energy, it finds enough to keep moving. You see dozens of them, crawling slowly, their translucent bodies glowing faintly like forgotten ghosts. The ocean, you realize, does not just host monsters, it forgives them. You are not frightened, you are humbled, because you now understand the truth. The monsters of the ocean are not the strange ones. We are. We, who fear darkness. We, who require warmth. We, who think survival must be loud. Down here, the loud die first. The soft endure, the slow win, the invisible thrive. You meet a comb jelly that refracts light into a rainbow without ever producing it. You watch a sea spider whose organs are in its legs. You drift past a transparent sea cucumber that swims like a balloon and defecates bioluminescence. Nothing here makes sense. And yet, everything works. Every adaptation is a poem. Every feature is a reason. You wonder how many of these creatures are still undiscovered. 90%? 95%? No one knows. Some scientists say we know more about the surface of Mars than about our own ocean floor. And the ocean prefers it that way. It guards its monsters with miles of depth and layers of fear. It reveals them only when necessary, or when amused. You, floating here, feel like an intruder, not just in place, but in time. Because many of these creatures have not evolved much in millions of years. They do not need to. They found perfection long ago. Their DNA carries memories older than your species. And they do not care about you. They do not attack. They do not flee. They ignore. And in that ignoring you find the deepest truth of all. The monsters of the ocean are not waiting to be discovered. They are simply being. Their existence is not a performance. It is a defiance. Against pressure. Against extinction. Against the arrogance of air breathers. They do not come to the surface. Because they do not need to. They are not lost. We are. And every meter deeper you go, you lose something. Gravity, ego, meaning, until only awe remains. The ocean is not a place you visit. It is a place that visits you. And when it does, it brings monsters, not to scare you, but to show you what survival looks like when all comfort is gone. The monsters of the ocean are not nightmares. They are blueprints for strength without violence, for silence without absence, for life without approval. And they are watching, not with eyes, but with existence, waiting, not for us, but for the next descent. You are drifting now, not through geography, but through time, not through space, but through thresholds of understanding. The deeper you descend into the mythology of the sea, the more it begins to feel like you are not exploring the ocean but being explored by it. It watches you without eyes, weighs you without scales, remembers you without memory. You are no longer a diver or a scientist or a thinker. You are a cell in an ecosystem that never needed you. You pass through a trench so vast and dark that the concept of above and below disappears. In this void, light is not only rare, it is a currency, a weapon, and sometimes a lure. The first monster you encounter here is not a predator, but a trap disguised as hunger, the anglerfish. A creature of nightmares not because of its size, but because of its silence. It is barely the size of a football, yet it commands one of the most deceptive weapons in the deep, a glowing lure that dangles from its head like a ghostly worm. It sways in the darkness, inviting, hypnotizing, and when its prey comes close, the anglerfish does not strike with rage but with certainty. Its jaws unhinge, its body expands, and it swallows whole. But its horror does not end there. The female anglerfish carries a darker secret. When she mates, the male fuses to her body, literally. His organs dissolve, his identity fades, and he becomes a pair of gonads attached to her skin, existing only to provide sperm when she demands it. In the world above, this would be grotesque. Down here, it is efficiency. Down here, love is not romantic. It is evolutionary. You continue your descent and witness one of the ocean's oldest performers, the deep-sea jellyfish. But this is no ordinary gelatinous ghost. This is a tola, the crown jelly, which wears a spiral of tentacles and lights up with electric pulses when threatened. It does not fight its enemies. It calls larger predators to deal with them. It is not brave, it is strategic. You realize that in the deep, wisdom wears strange costumes. You float past a siphonophore, an organism so long it makes blue whales look brief. It can stretch over 40 meters, a luminous thread of repeating clones, each with a different function. Some sting, some digest, some move. But it is not a colony. It is one animal, one mind spread across dozens of bodies, like a thought wearing many masks. You begin to question your own definition of self. What is a body? What is a mind? Are you a singular creature? Or are you a siphonophore of memories and instincts and borrowed ideas? The ocean asks without words, and you answer by watching. You see a black dragonfish. It glows with infrared light, invisible to most prey. It has light-producing organs under its eyes, along its body, and even in its mouth. It is invisible in the visible spectrum, and visible in the invisible. It is the ultimate stealth predator. But it is also fragile. Its skin rips easily. Its bones are light. Its body is built not for battle, but for strategy. It hunts in dimensions we barely understand. Next comes the tripod fish, which stands motionless on 3 long fins, like a ghost balancing on toothpicks. It waits for food to drift into its mouth, using currents and chance as its allies. It is not aggressive, it is patient. And in the deep, patience is not a virtue. It is a necessity. You pass a gulper eel again, this time watching as it inflates its body like a balloon to scare off a predator. It has no intention of fighting. Its entire defense is theater. And somehow, that works. You realize monsters do not always kill. Sometimes, they just endure better than anything else. And then you see something that feels like a message. A Dumbo octopus. It flaps its ear like fins and drifts with a grace that is almost playful. It does not run. It does not hide. It dances in the dark. You watch it for minutes, forgetting where you are. Its body pulses like a heartbeat, and you wonder if that heartbeat is your own. It is small, soft, unarmed, and yet it survives. Because in the ocean, softness is not weakness. It is adaptation. It is elegance sharpened into survival. The monsters you meet next are microscopic. Foraminifera, single-celled organisms with shells of calcium, often forming spirals or stars. They drift in sediments, unseen, unknown, uncountable. Yet their fossils shape mountains. Their patterns tell the history of climate. They are the archive of the planet, written in code too small to read with the eye. And you realize that the greatest monsters are not always large. Sometimes they are eternal. Sometimes they are the page, not the story. You encounter a sea cucumber that swims, not crawls, a vampire squid that turns itself inside out to confuse predators, a shrimp that can snap its claw so fast it creates a bubble that reaches temperatures hotter than the surface of the Sunday. And it does all this in total darkness, with no audience, with no applause, because the ocean does not perform. It evolves, it perfects, it forgets you. You think about what all these monsters have in common. and you understand. They are not monsters because they are evil. They are monsters because they do not conform, because they make you question what is natural, what is logical, what is necessary. They are born of extremes, pressure, darkness, silence, time. And in those extremes they find freedom. Freedom from the rules of land, of light, of logic. You feel something shift in you. The pressure is no longer crushing. It is humbling. You are not afraid of the dark. You are grateful for it, because only in darkness do these truths appear. And the deepest truth is this: monsters are not what we fear. Monsters are what survive. Monsters are what adapt. Monsters are what remain. The ocean does not care what you think of its children. It does not label them. It does not rank them. It only tests them. And those who pass the test do not rise. They stay in silence, in pressure, in power, watching, waiting, being. You ascend slowly, but you are not returning. You are carrying something, a new vision, a new humility, a new question, not what lives in the deep, but what lives in you. Because once you've met the monsters of the ocean, you start to wonder whether the surface is the illusion. And maybe, just maybe, the abyss is the truth. You are past the point where mythology ends and geology takes over, past the trenches that tear the earth's crust open and reveal secrets older than continents, past the silence that feels like absence and into the silence that feels like presence, where every molecule of water hums with a gravity that is not sound but memory. And the monsters you meet here are not simply strange or frightening. They are fundamental. They are the laws of survival rewritten in forms that bend imagination itself. And the first to greet you in this realm is the fang-toothed fish. Its body barely larger than a hand, but its teeth longer than its skull, grotesquely out of proportion, curving inward like ivory spears, its skin armored with scales that look like volcanic rock, its eyes reduced to pale dots because light is irrelevant, its jaws hinged for ambush, not pursuit. And though it looks like a fossil dragged unwillingly into the present, it is alive. It is thriving. It is the proof that success in the abyss is not beauty, not size, but adaptation so extreme, it terrifies the eye that sees it. And as you watch the fang-tooth drift with quiet patience, you realize that terror is a shallow word. Here horror is function. Here monstrosity is efficiency. Here survival itself is poetry sharpened into weapons. Moving deeper, you glimpse something even stranger. A creature that seems half dream, half weapon. The stoplight loose jaw. A dragonfish with a mouth so unhinged it can open like a trapdoor wider than its head. Its bones thin as wire. Its flesh dark and slippery. Its weapon not just teeth, but light itself. For it carries organs that emit both red and green bioluminescence, using the red to illuminate prey invisible to other fish, and the green to stun and confuse. And its skull is designed so the jaws can swing open at improbable angles, creating a gaping void that swallows without resistance. And watching it, you realize this is not an animal. It is an equation solved by darkness, a formula written in hunger and perfected in silence. Not far from it drifts another emissary of the abyss, the gulper eel, its mouth stretched into a cavernous bag that can engulf prey larger than itself, its body long and thin like a ribbon of shadow, its tail glowing faintly, a living lure, its stomach elastic, its appetite endless, and its strategy brutally simple: wait, open, consume. And when you see it inflate its body to deter predators, you almost laugh, because in its grotesque geometry lies a genius of absurd survival. And you think how often in our world absurdity is dismissed as weakness. Yet here it is a crown. You drift downward and find the abyssal grenadier, also known as rat-tail fish, its long tapering body dragging like a shadow across the seafloor, its eyes bulging, its scales rough, its motion slow but unrelenting, scavenging what it can. Its presence a reminder that the deep rewards not the swift or the fierce, but the persistent, those who can wait centuries for scraps and still endure. And in its patience lies a power humans rarely understand. But then the abyss reveals something that looks not like an animal at all, but like an artifact of chaos. A transparent balloon drifting slowly, enormous, amorphous, shifting with the current, This is Deepstaria, a jellyfish so rare and so strange that it looks like a parachute unfolding in liquid. Its bell smooth and featureless, its movements uncanny. Inside it small creatures swirl, trapped, digested slowly, as if time itself were the predator. And watching it is like watching a ghost consume seconds rather than flesh. And you feel that Deepstaria is less a jellyfish than a lesson in inevitability. Moving further, you encounter a hagfish, primitive, eel-like, boneless, jawless, one of the oldest lineages of vertebrates on Earth, feeding on the carcasses of the deep, burrowing into them with rasping tongues, secreting slime so thick it can choke predators. And though it looks revolting, it is a survivor older than most mountains, unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. A monster by aesthetics, a sage by endurance, and you realize that ugliness is irrelevant in the ledger of survival. You drift to the seafloor and meet the sea spider, not an insect, not a true spider, but an arthropod whose organs spill into its legs because its body is too small to contain them, moving slowly, alien in design, yet perfectly functional. And you laugh softly because even here, life finds space in the impossible. You sense another movement, and suddenly a shadow slides by that is larger than belief. A Greenland shark, moving with glacial slowness, its body massive, its eyes clouded, often blind from parasites, its flesh toxic with urea. Yet it lives longer than any known vertebrate, centuries long, perhaps 4 or 5, drifting as if time itself were a current, its presence not terrifying but humbling, because in its persistence you see a kind of eternity, an animal that swims through centuries as you walk through hours, and you understand that the ocean does not measure life in years, but in endurance. Near it a sleeper shark glides, another giant, jaws lined with teeth capable of tearing apart seals. Yet its true strength is not aggression but patience, its metabolism so slow it can survive on one meal for months, its body designed not for the chase but for the wait, and you begin to see a pattern that the abyssal monsters are all teachers of patience, of silence, of resilience, of the art of doing little but surviving much. But then the trench trembles, not with earthquakes, but with the pulse of life so large you cannot comprehend it, and you realize you are witnessing the presence of the colossal squid, larger in mass than the giant squid, heavier, more muscular, with rotating hooks on its tentacles, its eyes the largest of any creature alive, vast black orbs that can detect the faintest silhouettes in eternal dark, its arms lined with weapons that look like they were forged by demons, and its beak, so enormous it has been found in the stomachs of sperm whales, evidence of wars waged in silence, battles no human will ever see, wars without witness fought in the vacuum of the abyss. And you know you are not supposed to be here. You are trespassing on a battlefield of titans. The colossal squid does not linger. It vanishes, a shape swallowed by infinite black, and you are left with only scars on your imagination. You move on and encounter amphipods glowing faintly, scavengers that consume everything, worms that thrive on methane, bubbling from cold seeps, crabs farming bacteria on their claws. Creatures so improbable you stop trying to catalog them. You simply witness them. And as you witness, you understand that the monsters of the ocean are not aliens. They are inevitabilities. They are the natural consequence of pressure, of time, of darkness. We call them monsters because we fear what we do not understand. But they are not mistakes. They are the truest children of Earth. They are proof that survival is not beauty or dominance or intelligence. It is endurance. It is patience. It is adaptation written into every cell. And as you float in this abyssal cathedral, surrounded by beings that should not exist but do, you realize the final truth of this descent. The ocean is not holding monsters. The ocean is holding mirrors. And when you look long enough, you stop seeing teeth and start seeing yourself. Because the real monster is not the one that glows or waits or kills in silence. The real monster is the arrogance that thought the ocean would ever be ours. You are far below the places where maps end, far beyond the reach of submarines that crack under pressure, beyond the sensors that fail, beyond the courage of human exploration, drifting now in a dimension where the ocean no longer feels like water, but like another state of matter, dense, eternal, and absolute. And in this place, every creature you meet carries the weight of impossibility. The first to greet you in this underworld is the rat-tailed grenadier, a fish shaped like a tapering shadow, its head large and bony, its body trailing into a whip-like tail, moving slowly across the seafloor like a punctuation mark, written by geology itself, scavenging what little reaches this desert of pressure, proving that in the abyss survival is not about speed, but about persistence. Near it moves the cuskeel, elongated and soft, its body lacking the elegance of shallow fish, its swim bladder adapted into an organ of sound, capable of producing vibrations to communicate in the dark. You realize you are listening not to silence, but to a hidden language spoken in tremors and pulses, an orchestra of vibrations echoing through black water. Floating higher, you witness a siphonophore drifting like a living constellation, longer than a blue whale, its thread-like body segmented into countless clones, each one specialized, each one vital, a democracy of organisms functioning as one being, glowing faintly like a necklace of stars in the night of the abyss. Watching it forces you to question your own body. Are you one being, or a colony of cells pretending to be singular? The ocean asks you without words, and your heart stutters with the weight of the answer. Then, from the blackness emerges the dragonfish, a predator sculpted from nightmares, its jaw unhinged, its teeth translucent daggers, its body glowing with organs that emit infrared light, invisible to prey but clear to itself. It is a phantom sniper, a hunter with vision in a spectrum others cannot perceive. It glides toward you with an elegance so cruel it feels holy, and in its presence you realize the deep is not a theater of violence but of efficiency. It is not about fury. It is about inevitability. Further still, you meet the gulper eel, its grotesque mouth inflated like a balloon, its stomach elastic as a universe, its tail flickering with pale light. It is less an animal than a net attached to hunger, its geometry absurd yet undeniable, its survival guaranteed by patience. And then, like a dream breaking into nightmare, you encounter Deepsteria again, the jellyfish that looks like a drifting parachute of flesh, inside which smaller creatures swirl and vanish, digested not with teeth, but with inevitability. Watching it is like watching time consume itself. But the deep never stops offering paradoxes. Out of the black drifts the Dumbo octopus, tiny, ear-like fins flapping gently, as if mocking the absurdity of darkness. It does not run. It does not fight. It dances, folding its body into calm postures, swallowing prey whole with quiet grace. It looks fragile, almost cartoonish, and yet it thrives deeper than any other octopus, proving that softness is not weakness. Softness is survival. And while your mind tries to process that truth, a shadow glides above you, vast, slow, eternal, the Greenland shark, older than empires, older than languages, some of them older than nations themselves. These sharks drift for centuries, their flesh toxic, their eyes clouded, their bodies scarred, their time measured not in years but in centuries. They do not rush. They do not hunt with fury. They persist. Watching them is like watching time breathe. And deeper still, where even your imagination trembles, lies the amphipod Hirandelia gigas, armored with aluminum, a metal harvested from the mud, proof that chemistry itself is rewritten in the abyss. They are tiny, but their significance is immense. They show you that life does not just adapt. Life innovates. Life hacks geology. And then you reach the hydrothermal vents again, chimneys of black smoke rising like cathedral towers, surrounded by creatures that should not exist, tube worms meters tall, crabs with furred legs, shrimp blind yet thriving, ecosystems that have no need for the sun, powered instead by bacteria that transform poison into food. This is life written in another language, life refusing extinction, life proclaiming that even in hell there can be gardens. You realize that the monsters of the ocean are not exceptions. They are rules. They are not aberrations. They are the truest expressions of possibility. You drift, humbled, not frightened, because the monsters you feared are not horrors. They are teachers. They whisper truths written in pressure and silence, that patience is stronger than violence, that endurance is greater than speed, that invisibility can be the highest form of power. That ugliness is irrelevant when function is flawless. That death is not an end, but a banquet for others. That survival is not conquest, but adaptation. And as these truths sink into you, the abyss no longer feels alien. It feels familiar, because the monsters of the ocean are not waiting to be found. They have always been here. It was us who were late. You are deeper now than stories dare to go, deeper than myth, deeper than fear, deeper than any notion of safety or return. And in this realm, the concept of life is not a question but a riddle, because everything here is improbable, yet everything here endures. The monsters of the ocean at this depth are not accidents. They are inevitabilities sculpted by time, pressure, darkness, and silence. And they are more profound than legends, because they are real. The first to greet you in this trench is the amphipod again. Countless tiny bodies swarming over the carcass of a fallen whale, stripping it to the bone with tireless efficiency, transforming death into life, recycling what the surface discards, proving that the abyss wastes nothing. They are not frightening because of their size, but because of their persistence. When the giants fall, the amphipods inherit the feast. When empires collapse, the scavengers endure. You drift further and find the snailfish once more, translucent, soft, shaped like a ghost of water itself, gliding effortlessly through pressure that would pulverize steel. Its body is delicate yet unbreakable, a paradox incarnate, smiling with a face too human for comfort. It thrives not in spite of the abyss, but because of it. You realize the abyss does not tolerate weakness. It transforms it into strength. Next, you pass by sea cucumbers, gelatinous, writhing, ingesting sediment, and excreting it clean. Slow farmers of the seafloor, turning wasteland into garden, their bodies glowing faintly like lanterns of persistence. They are not beautiful, not majestic, yet they are vital. Without them, the ocean would drown in its own decay. These monsters are custodians, janitors, keepers of balance, and their quiet labor outlasts storms and centuries. Then you encounter a being that seems like a joke from evolution, but is a masterpiece of survival. The anglerfish, female luminous, grotesque, teeth curved like daggers, lure swaying hypnotically, jaws hinged to swallow prey whole, its body a dark silhouette against nothingness. The male is fused to her, a parasite, a permanent appendage, reduced to a pair of gonads feeding her with sperm when needed. Romance has no meaning here. Efficiency is the only language, and efficiency is monstrous. But then the deep offers elegance again, in the form of the glass octopus, transparent, organs visible like jewels suspended in liquid, brain glowing faintly, nerves shimmering, almost invisible to the predators that stalk these waters. It is as if the abyss decided to sculpt a creature from invisibility itself, proof that in darkness the greatest defense is not armor but absence. You watch it vanish into black, not because it swam away, but because it became the water. The trench does not pause. It introduces you to the hatchetfish, thin metallic body, eyes always pointing upward, belly lined with photophores that glow just enough to erase its shadow, counter-illumination perfected, camouflage turned into invisibility. It is a genius born of darkness, not by hiding but by pretending not to exist, proof that the best way to survive is sometimes to erase yourself. And in this erasure lies victory. As you drift along the trench wall, massive scars carved by tectonic fury, you see vents glowing faintly, not hydrothermal this time, but cold seeps, places where methane bubbles out like whispers of the earth's breath, and around them live mussels, clams, and crabs adapted to poison, their bodies designed not to resist death but to feast on it. They live in harmony with bacteria that transform poison into sustenance, proof that life can bloom even in the veins of the planet's darkest wounds. Watching them is like watching an argument against extinction. You then encounter the vampire squid, cloak unfurled, body red velvet, eyes glowing like embers, drifting without urgency, releasing glowing clouds when threatened, not to fight, but to confuse. It is an illusionist, a phantom, a performer in a theater without audience. It proves that survival does not always demand violence. Sometimes, survival is performance. Sometimes, survival is deception, and deception can be more powerful than fangs. Drifting near the trench floor, you find hagfish, boneless, jawless, oozing slime so thick it can clog gills of predators, wriggling into carcasses and devouring them from the inside out. They are revolting, primitive, perfect. They are a reminder that elegance is optional, that beauty is irrelevant, that survival does not need our approval. They have existed for hundreds of millions of years, unchanged, and will likely exist for hundreds more after us. They are monsters not because of what they are, but because of how little they care what we think. Suddenly the current shifts and you see something immense, a shadow so large it feels like the trench itself is moving. It is the colossal squid, its bulk heavier than buses, arms lined with rotating hooks, eyes vast as orbs of night, its presence undeniable, its silence louder than any roar. It passes like a ghost, indifferent, sovereign, proof that some monsters do not need legend. They write legend in scars carved into the heads of sperm whales. It is gone as soon as it arrived, leaving you trembling with awe, not fear. Because fear is small, awe is infinite. The trench reminds you again and again that you are not here to conquer. You are here to witness. You watch amphipods glowing faintly like drifting embers. You see worms thriving in fire, shrimp blind yet triumphant, crabs farming bacteria, siphonophores weaving threads of light across eternity. And as you witness, you understand that this is not chaos. This is order written in another alphabet. The monsters of the ocean are not random. They are necessary. They are not nightmares. They are blueprints. They are not villains. They are the truth stripped of comfort. And as the abyss closes around you, you feel not fear but belonging. Because if they can exist here, if they can endure silence, darkness, and pressure beyond imagination, then perhaps you can endure too. Perhaps the lesson of the monsters is not that they are strange. It is that you are fragile. And in that fragility, humility is born. The trench does not care. It continues. Its monsters continue. And you, for a moment, are allowed to continue with them. You are drifting now into a silence that feels older than continents, into waters that have pressed against the bones of the earth since before mammals existed. And as you move deeper, you sense that you are no longer trespassing into the ocean, but into the architecture of time itself. For here, every creature is not simply alive. It is ancient scripture written in blood and light and pressure. The first to greet you in this black cathedral is the stoplight loose jaw, its face skeletal, its body dark, its jaw unhinged so wide it seems like a door into nowhere, its organs glowing with red and green light invisible to most, making it a hunter cloaked in dimensions others cannot sense. A sniper drifting through shadows, its bite lined with teeth so thin and translucent they look like glass daggers carved from the abyss. And watching it strike is like watching inevitability sharpened into flesh. Close behind drifts the fangtooth again, grimace permanent, body armored, teeth grotesquely oversized, and you realize these are not redundancies. These are archetypes, blueprints of fear carved into multiple forms, proof that evolution is not content with one design of terror. It likes to iterate until horror is perfected. As you pass, you feel the slow rhythm of another presence, the rat-tailed grenadier, a shadow trailing a body into infinity, scavenging endlessly, a ghost sweeping the floor of history, and you begin to see that every scavenger here is part of a balance you never knew existed, a sacred economy, where death feeds persistence. You turn, and something drifts past like an angel of glass. The glass octopus, its body nearly invisible, its organs glowing faintly, its movements so fluid it seems less like swimming and more like thought. And you realize invisibility is not absence. Invisibility is power. The ability to be everywhere and nowhere, seen and unseen, known and unknowable, all at once. This thought barely finishes before you witness a siphonophore stretching beyond vision, its body glowing faintly, endless, repeating, a colony functioning as a single mind, longer than any creature you have ever seen. Longer than most legends dared to imagine. And it humbles you, because you realize individuality is a shallow concept, and perhaps you too are nothing but a siphonophore of organs, instincts, and borrowed stardust. From below rises a shadow vast and eternal, the Greenland shark, drifting with the patience of centuries, blind, slow, its flesh toxic, its age unfathomable. And you are struck by the realization that this shark may have swum while civilizations rose and fell, while languages were born and died, while stars ignited and collapsed, and still it drifts, unaffected, a sermon of endurance carved into muscle and cartilage. You drift farther and witness the bizarre form of the gulper eel, its mouth opening like a void, its tail glowing faintly, its body ribbon-like, absurd yet efficient, grotesque yet successful, and you begin to laugh softly in awe. Because the absurd is only absurd to you, not to survival. Watching it, you feel humbled, because you know that if the gulper eel thrives, then perhaps everything strange in you has a place too, if only you learn to adapt it. Then from the blackness emerges deep staria, parachute of flesh, jelly without tentacles, translucent bell undulating like a haunted curtain, inside of which small creatures struggle, slowly digested, consumed not by violence but by inevitability. And you realize that some monsters are not killers but prisons, traps that dissolve time itself. Floating nearby is the vampire squid, velvet cloak spread wide, body dark red, eyes glowing like rubies, arms lined with suri, and when threatened it releases a glowing cloud of bioluminescence, a phantom smoke screen that turns fear into light. And in that spectacle you understand survival is sometimes theater, sometimes illusion, sometimes beauty sharpened into strategy. The trench floor opens beneath you into hydrothermal vents, chimneys exhaling black smoke hotter than fire into freezing darkness, and around them life blossoms like forbidden gardens. Tube worms meters long, crabs with hairy claws, mussels packed in clusters, bacteria transforming poison into energy, ecosystems thriving without sunlight, rewriting the definition of life itself. You watch this and you know with certainty that the monsters of the ocean are not accidents, they are revelations, proof that life is not fragile, life is infinite in its ability to reinvent itself. Drifting beyond the vents you encounter the hagfish again, slime flowing from its pores like liquid armor, burrowing into carcasses, devouring from within, revolting yet eternal, unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. And you accept that disgust is irrelevant, that survival wears faces you may not like, but faces that endure nonetheless. Higher above, jellyfish pulse with bioluminescent displays, comb jellies ripple rainbows through darkness, siphonophores sparkle like galaxies stretched across water. And you realize you are not watching creatures, you are watching stars of another sky, constellations of the abyss, an astronomy written in flesh and light. And then suddenly the trench trembles with presence. Colossal squid, heavier than buses, arms armed with rotating hooks, eyes vast as planets, sliding past with indifference. And you know you are in the presence of something sovereign, something that does not notice you, something that has battled whales in silence for millions of years and emerged with scars that write legends into skin. It vanishes, and you are left shaking not from fear but from awe, because fear is small and awe is infinite. As you drift in this endless cathedral, you understand finally that the monsters of the ocean are not monsters at all. They are truths. They are inevitabilities. They are mirrors showing you what it takes to endure when all comfort is gone. Patience, silence, adaptation, invisibility, resilience. And as you watch them drift in the eternal dark, you know you have been misnaming them all along. They are not monsters. They are masters. You are moving now through water so heavy it feels like stone liquefied, through a silence so dense it feels like gravity itself has thickened. And the deeper you go, the more you realize you are not in an ocean but in a universe disguised as one. For here, distances lose meaning and time loses order. Here, every creature is both impossibility and inevitability. And the first to appear from the black curtain is the hatchetfish, its thin metallic body shimmering with a false glow, its belly lined with photophores that mimic the faint light from above, erasing its shadow, perfect camouflage in an environment where being visible means being consumed. And you realize invisibility here is not cowardice, it is sovereignty, the ability to exist without being taken, and that is a power greater than aggression. As you drift, you notice the barrel-eye fish, a creature that seems like hallucination, its head transparent, its green eyes swiveling inside a dome of jelly, gazing upward through its own skull, searching for silhouettes of prey above, a design so alien it feels like parody. Yet it thrives. It hunts with precision. It survives by seeing through its own body. And you wonder what it would mean for you to see through yourself, to stare upward with vision unblocked by skin or ego. and you sense the ocean is mocking your limited imagination. Deeper still, the gulper eel passes again, its body ribbon-like, its jaw grotesquely oversized, inflating itself into a balloon of flesh. Absurd and effective. A joke told by evolution, but a joke that has lasted millions of years. And you cannot laugh without admitting respect, because absurdity that endures is no joke at all. Ahead of you drifts the tripod fish, standing motionless on three elongated fins planted into the seafloor like stilts, facing the current. Its head still, its eyes nearly blind, its patience infinite, waiting for food to drift into its open mouth. And in its stillness you recognize a lesson you have always feared to accept, that patience is not passivity, patience is strategy, patience is mastery. Patience is the refusal to waste energy in a world where energy is everything. Passing over the seafloor, you notice amphipods clustering around scraps of detritus, tiny crustaceans armored with resilience, harvesting whatever falls from the surface world. Scavengers turned into kings of persistence. And you realize the ocean does not crown the powerful, it crowns the tireless. A sudden movement pulls your gaze upward, and you see the black dragonfish, its slender body glowing with organs that emit red light, invisible to most prey, its teeth sharp, its face angular, its hunting strategy, both invisible and inevitable, and as it glides past, you feel hunted not by malice but by design, by something that has no hatred but perfect intent, and you understand that fear is not an emotion here. Fear is recognition of being included in the equation of hunger. You drift through an expanse of open water, where comb jellies pulse like floating galaxies, refracting rainbow light across darkness. Their movements delicate, their forms ghostly, and you realize that beauty itself is not absent from the abyss. It is everywhere, but it is beauty that does not require an audience, beauty that is functional, beauty that is survival disguised as light. Further along, a vampire squid drifts with cloak extended, its body glowing faintly, releasing clouds of luminous mucus when threatened, turning fear into spectacle, a performance of survival that is both haunting and mesmerizing. And you realize that the ocean does not separate survival from art. Here, survival is art, every defense a masterpiece, every adaptation a performance rehearsed for millions of years. Suddenly you are struck by the presence of the Greenland shark again, its massive form moving with glacial patience, its eye clouded with parasites, its flesh toxic, its age older than cities, older than empires, and in its passage you feel not fear but reverence, because you know you are in the presence of time incarnate, a living archive drifting past without recognition of your existence. You follow the trench wall and encounter hagfish once again, slimy, jawless, primitive, yet unbroken across eras, and you accept that the grotesque is often eternal, the revolting often indestructible, and the beautiful often fragile. And the abyss teaches you that endurance is the only currency that matters. The trench widens into a plain where brittle stars cover the seafloor like a carpet of moving limbs, their bodies delicate, their motions alien, their survival dependent on sheer numbers, and you recognize that cooperation here is not ideology, it is necessity. Overhead drifts deep staria, translucent, amorphous. Inside its bell, smaller fish struggle, their movements slowing as digestion erases them, and watching it is like watching inevitability wear a veil. You think of time again, of mortality, of inevitability, and you know that deep staria is less an animal than a metaphor, a moving cathedral of entropy. Then the deep shakes with the silent presence of something titanic, the colossal squid gliding past again, its arms armed with rotating hooks, its eyes vast as orbs of night, its body sovereign, indifferent, and you know you are nothing to it, less than plankton, less than dust, and yet the fact that you witnessed it feels like a privilege greater than survival itself. It vanishes and you are left trembling not in terror but in awe, because terror is small and awe is infinite. You drift further and encounter shrimp that snap claws fast enough to create bubbles hotter than stars, worms that glow with chemical fire, sea cucumbers that swim like balloons, siphonophores that stretch like galaxies, amphipods armored in metal, creatures thriving in vents, where poison becomes food, all of them improbable, all of them undeniable. And you understand, the deep is not an alien world, but the foundation of this one. the place where life began, the place where life will continue after you are gone. And in this revelation you recognize the ultimate truth of the monsters of the ocean, that they are not nightmares but scriptures, not enemies but mentors, not aberrations but inevitabilities. And they whisper through pressure and silence that survival is not conquest, survival is adaptation, that strength is not violence, strength is patience, that beauty is not ornament, beauty is endurance. And as these truths sink into you like currents of revelation, you no longer feel like an intruder. You feel like a witness, and you know the abyss has allowed you to see its face, not because you deserve it, but because it does not care. And in that indifference lies the deepest truth of all. You are suspended now in water so black it feels like the memory of light has been erased, in pressure so crushing it feels as if your very thoughts are being compacted into denser truths. And yet in this crushing silence, life continues not timidly but extravagantly. Life wears masks of terror and crowns of absurdity. Life becomes monsters because only monsters endure in this cathedral of pressure. The first to emerge from the void before you is the anglerfish once more, its small body grotesque, its jaws lined with teeth curving inward like prison bars, its head crowned with a bioluminescent lure that sways like a false promise, hypnotizing prey into approaching, jaws opening like a door into inevitability. And you realize again that the deep does not reward the swift but the deceiver, the one who turns patience into a trap, the one who transforms stillness into inevitability. You drift further and see the stoplight loose jaw again, its skeletal face and glowing organs revealing dimensions of light invisible to others, hunting with infrared beams. And you understand that the monsters of the ocean are not only shaped by darkness, they are sculptors of darkness, bending light to their advantage, inventing spectrums of existence you cannot even perceive. Nearby drifts the tripod fish, still planted like a ghostly sentinel on its elongated fins, mouth open, eyes blind, living entirely through patience. And you think again that patience here is not passive, it is aggressive. It is the art of waiting so completely that the world must surrender. Then you see the barrel-eye fish, transparent skull glowing, eyes swiveling upward within its dome of jelly, searching for silhouettes of prey in the eternal black. And in its alien gaze you see reflection, the ability to see through oneself, the ability to look upward from within. And you envy its vision, for it is not bound by flesh the way you are. It is not trapped by opacity. From the distance a shape glides with elegance. The Dumbo octopus, flapping its ear-like fins, drifting with playful grace, soft, unarmed, thriving at depths that would crush submarines, proving again that softness is not weakness, that gentleness can be mastery, that survival can be a dance as much as a hunt. You laugh softly watching it, because in its serenity it seems to mock the grotesque violence around it, and yet it thrives just as well as the fangtooth or the dragonfish. Higher in the water column you notice siphonophores glowing faintly, stretching for dozens of meters, colonies acting as singular beings, galaxies of light woven into the black, each unit specialized, each unit dependent. And you realize individuality is a surface illusion. Down here collectivity is survival. Down here the colony is the self. The trench grows darker, and you encounter the hatchetfish again, body metallic, eyes staring upward, belly glowing faintly to erase its silhouette. An invention so simple and so perfect that it humbles you, and you understand invisibility is not absence. Invisibility is strength. You move further and see brittle stars covering the seafloor, their arms twisting and coiling, thousands moving together like a carpet alive, feeding on whatever the current delivers. And their presence is unsettling, because they are not singular creatures, they are a wave. They are a tide of limbs, and you realize monsters need not be giants. Monsters can be multitudes. Out of the shadows, a Greenland shark drifts again, body vast, movements glacial, older than empires, older than your own imagination. And as it passes, you feel smaller than you ever have, because here age itself is power, patience itself is violence, and you know this shark will continue long after you are forgotten, unbothered by your astonishment. Suddenly the current trembles and the colossal squid emerges, vast eyes reflecting light that does not exist, arms lined with rotating hooks, beak enormous enough to split bone, presence sovereign and indifferent, and you feel in its passing the truth of the abyss, that sovereignty requires no recognition, that kingship requires no crown, that power is not shouted but endured. It vanishes into blackness as if it had never been, leaving only awe behind, and awe is the currency of the abyss. Moving near the trench wall, you find hydrothermal vents, chimneys spewing smoke of minerals, surrounded by tube worms taller than you, blood-red plumes swaying, crabs with hairy claws farming bacteria, shrimp blind yet thriving, ecosystems built not on sunlight but on poison, gardens fed by fire. And in them you see the ultimate defiance, life existing not because conditions are gentle, but because conditions are brutal. These are monsters not because they are terrifying, but because they are impossible. Yet here they are, undeniable, thriving, laughing silently at extinction. You float further and witness deep styria, translucent bell drifting, inside of which small fish swirl, trapped, digested, not with violence but with inevitability. And you realize that the abyss does not always kill with fury. Sometimes it kills with patience, with inevitability, with silence. Drifting past, you see comb jellies refracting light into rainbow displays, siphonophores glowing like cosmic necklaces, anglerfish luring, grenadiers scavenging, amphipods armored in metal, hagfish oozing slime, vampire squids cloaked in velvet, dragonfish sniping with invisible beams. And you know you are witnessing not chaos but a library of survival, not nightmares but scriptures, not horrors but hymns. The monsters of the ocean whisper in silence that survival is not conquest but adaptation, that beauty is not ornament but endurance, that strength is not aggression but patience, that fear is not weakness but recognition. And as these truths sink into your chest, you know with certainty that you have misnamed them all along. They are not monsters. They are masters. They are the oldest teachers of Earth, older than your species, older than your arrogance, older than your myths, and they wait not for you, not for your recognition, not for your fear. They wait because waiting is what they are. Waiting is survival. Waiting is eternity. And in their waiting, you finally understand that the abyss has never been empty. The abyss has always been full. You are no longer descending. You are dissolving, the boundaries of your body thinning into the pressure, your breath forgotten, your heartbeat irrelevant, and as the abyss consumes you, it does not ask permission. It does not acknowledge your presence. It simply continues. For the ocean does not need you. It never did. And the monsters that emerge from the void around you are reminders that your imagination has always been too shallow. The first to materialize is the fangtooth, its grotesque teeth longer than its skull, its face a permanent grimace carved by evolution, and yet it thrives not by size but by precision, by efficiency, by senses tuned to vibrations in the dark, and you realize ugliness is not a disadvantage. Ugliness is a crown in the abyss, a mark of mastery over conditions that would annihilate anything fragile. Following it drifts the dragonfish, slender and luminous, its body glowing with organs that emit red light invisible to prey, its jaws lined with transparent fangs, its hunting strategy not aggression but stealth, striking with inevitability, and in its presence you feel that light itself is weapon, that invisibility is advantage, that survival here is written not in speed, but in the ability to be unseen until the final moment. Farther along, you see the gulper eel inflate its body grotesquely, its jaw a cavernous void, its tail flickering with pale light, its form absurd yet undeniable, and you begin to understand that absurdity is not weakness. Absurdity that endures is genius, and every strange line in its geometry is a signature of survival older than empires. From the darkness rises deep styria, translucent, parachute-shaped, its bell drifting in uncanny silence, inside which smaller fish swirl helplessly, digested slowly as if time itself were predator, and you realize that inevitability is the true weapon of the deep. Inevitability disguised as patience, inevitability disguised as shape. Then, gliding upward, comes the Dumbo octopus, soft, playful, ear-like fins flapping gently, drifting with serenity in a world of violence, and you feel both wonder and humility, because it proves again that softness is not fragility, Softness can be a strategy sharper than claws. Softness can be strength when pressure is eternal. Above you, a siphonophore stretches endlessly, glowing faintly, a colony acting as one. Each segment specialized, each dependent, a single mind wearing many bodies, and you wonder again about yourself, about individuality, about whether your body is a colony too, a siphonophore of memories and instincts masquerading as oneself, and you feel the abyss smile silently at your question. Suddenly, a Greenland shark passes, massive, ancient, its movements glacial, its eyes clouded, its flesh toxic, its age spanning centuries, perhaps half a millennium. And as it drifts indifferently, you understand that time itself is a strategy, that patience is the oldest form of violence, that to endure centuries without change is to outlast civilizations, to watch empires rise and fall as if they were sparks. And the shark does not acknowledge you because it does not need to. It is eternity disguised as flesh. You sink past hydrothermal vents again, chimneys exhaling fire into ice, surrounded by tube worms, crabs, and shrimp that thrive on poison. Ecosystems writing life in languages no sunlight has ever learned. And you feel awe, because you are watching creation itself, watching life invent itself again in conditions where it should not exist. And you realize extinction is not the opposite of life. Extinction is the reason life reinvents. Crawling near the vents are hagfish, slime oozing from their pores, bodies primitive, unchanged for hundreds of millions of years, and you accept their grotesque perfection, because what disgusts you has already outlived you. Above them, comb jellies ripple rainbows through darkness, refracting light into beauty with no audience, beauty for no reason but itself. And you recognize that survival can be beautiful even when it is unnecessary. Then the abyss shudders with presence. A colossal squid glides past, vast eyes reflecting light that does not exist, arms armed with rotating hooks, beak vast as nightmares, sovereign, indifferent, a god of pressure, a lord of silence. And you tremble not in fear but in awe, because fear is small and awe is infinite. And you know you are witnessing battles that have raged between squid and sperm whale for millions of years, wars without witness, wars without sound, wars etched into scars no surface dweller will ever see. It vanishes, and you are left humbled, reduced, expanded. As you drift, you see amphipods glowing faintly, brittle stars carpeting the floor, sea cucumbers swimming like balloons, tripod fish standing motionless like sentinels of patience, anglerfish swaying their lures like false promises, vampire squids cloaked in velvet illusions. And you realize the abyss is not chaos. The abyss is scripture. Every monster a verse, every adaptation a hymn, every grotesque geometry a lesson. The ocean whispers without words that strength is patience, that invisibility is power, that endurance is beauty, that fear is recognition. And as you absorb these truths, you no longer see monsters at all. You see masters, you see teachers older than time itself, and you know that the abyss has always been full, full of truths, full of inevitabilities, full of mirrors, and what you feared as monsters were only reflections, reflections of what it takes to endure when all comfort is gone. You are no longer sinking, you are becoming, your body dissolving into the weight of water, your mind surrendering to the rhythm of silence, your heartbeat syncing with the pulse of the abyss. And as you drift into this cathedral of darkness, you understand that you are not discovering monsters. You are being discovered by them, because the ocean has always been older, deeper, and more patient than you. The first to emerge from the void is the anglerfish again, its lure swaying like a hypnotic whisper, its jaws lined with teeth curved like prison gates, its body grotesque, yet it rules its world through stillness, through deceit, through inevitability. And you know now that monsters are not about violence, but about certainty, about the refusal to fail. Behind it glides the stoplight loose jaw, skeletal, glowing with red light invisible to most prey, striking with surgical precision, its transparent fangs reflecting light that does not exist. And in its presence you realize that fear is not emotion here. Fear is geometry. Fear is design perfected by pressure and time. You move onward and meet the gulper eel, inflating grotesquely, its mouth a cavern of hunger, its tail flickering faintly with light, its form absurd. Yet its absurdity is proof of persistence, and you laugh softly in awe. Because absurdity that thrives is genius, and genius in the abyss is always strange. Near the seafloor, the tripod fish stands once more, its elongated fins rooted like stilts, blind eyes facing currents, patience stretched across eternity. And you understand that survival is not about motion, but about stillness, not about noise, but about silence, not about speed, but about the refusal to waste energy. And then the abyss opens into brilliance, a siphonophore drifting past, glowing faintly, longer than whales, longer than legends, a living thread of countless clones acting as one. And you feel yourself trembling because individuality is a fragile idea here. Collectivity is strength. Collectivity is truth. And you begin to wonder if you too are just a colony of memories pretending to be one. From above descends a Greenland shark, ancient, vast, blind, toxic, older than cities, older than languages, perhaps older than nations, drifting with patience so immense it feels like watching eternity swim, and you realize time is a weapon sharper than any tooth, and patience is the oldest violence. Past the shark glides a Dumbo octopus, soft, playful, ear-like fins fluttering, body delicate yet thriving at crushing depths. Proof again that softness is not weakness, that gentleness can be mastery, that survival can be elegance disguised as fragility. You follow it into an expanse of comb jellies refracting rainbow light into darkness, glowing galaxies woven into water, beauty with no audience, beauty without reason, beauty as survival. And you understand that even in the abyss art persists, not as decoration but as strategy. Near the trench wall, hagfish writhe, slime oozing from their pores, primitive, revolting, unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. And you accept that disgust is irrelevant, because survival does not care about aesthetics. Survival does not seek approval. Survival is truth stripped bare. Farther along, deep stereo drifts again, translucent bell unfolding like a haunted curtain, inside which smaller fish swirl and vanish, digested slowly by inevitability, and you know inevitability is the truest predator of all. Suddenly the abyss trembles with presence. A colossal squid glides past, its eyes vast as planets, its arms lined with rotating hooks, its beak sharp enough to split bone, and you are reduced to awe, because here sovereignty is not conquest. Sovereignty is indifference. Sovereignty is survival so immense it does not need to be recognized. And the squid vanishes into black, as though it had never been, leaving behind only silence heavier than before. You drift on and encounter amphipods armored with aluminum, tiny but inventive, thriving in mud, scavenging relentlessly, proving that size is irrelevant when persistence is absolute. Near vents spewing black smoke into cold water, you see tube worms taller than humans, blood-red plumes swaying, bacteria feeding on poison, crabs with hairy claws farming their own sustenance, shrimp blind yet triumphant. And you know you are watching life write itself again in languages no surface mind can read, life reinventing itself in hell. And you bow in awe because hell is not absence of life. Hell is its forge. You pass vampire squids cloaked in velvet, releasing glowing clouds to confuse, anglerfish swaying their lures like false promises, dragonfish glowing with invisible beams, brittle stars carpeting the floor, sea cucumbers swimming like balloons. And you know you are not in chaos. You are in scripture, a library of survival written in grotesque forms. Each monster a hymn, each adaptation a sermon. The ocean whispers truths without words, that strength is patience, that invisibility is power, that endurance is beauty, that fear is recognition. And as you absorb these lessons, you understand that monsters are not mistakes. Monsters are inevitabilities. Monsters are truths the surface could not tolerate, and in naming them monsters, you revealed your own fragility. Because down here, there are no monsters. There are only masters. Masters older than your species, masters older than your arrogance, masters who endure without needing recognition. They do not wait for you. They do not fear you. They do not even notice you. They simply are. And in their being lies the deepest truth of all, that the abyss has always been full, and you were the one who was empty. You are moving now through a trench so vast it feels like a scar carved into the earth by forgotten gods. the walls jagged and sharp, the water dense with pressure. The silence so total it feels like sound has never existed here. And yet the abyss is alive with beings that defy imagination. Beings that rewrite every rule you thought was sacred. Beings we call monsters, but that the ocean knows only as inevitabilities. The first to emerge from the blackness is the hatchetfish, its thin metallic body gleaming faintly with counter-illumination, its belly lined with photophores that erase its shadow, a perfect trick of survival in a place where the smallest silhouette means death. And you realize invisibility here is not luxury but law. Invisibility is sovereignty. Invisibility is survival sharpened into geometry. As you drift, you encounter the barrel-eye fish, its transparent skull glowing faintly, its green eyes swiveling upward inside a dome of jelly, gazing through its own forehead to detect prey silhouetted against faint light, its design alien, its existence undeniable. And you feel awe because it proves that vision is not bound by skin. Vision can be reimagined. Vision can look through the self. Passing further, you see a gulper eel inflate its cavernous mouth, its stomach elastic as infinity, its tail glowing faintly like a pale star, its body ribbon-like and grotesque. Yet its absurdity is proof of genius, because in the abyss nothing survives unless it is perfectly adapted. And if absurdity thrives, then absurdity is wisdom. You sink lower and witness deep styria again. Jellyfish shaped like a parachute of flesh, its bell translucent, its movements uncanny. Inside it, smaller fish swirling helplessly, digested by inevitability. And you understand time itself is predator here. Time itself is digestion. Time itself is the abyss's sharpest weapon. From the shadows comes the dragonfish, slender, luminous, its jaws lined with translucent fangs, its organs glowing with invisible red light, hunting with beams unseen by prey. And you tremble because this is not merely an animal. It is stealth perfected, a sniper cloaked in darkness, striking with inevitability, and you know survival here is written not in noise but in silence. You drift farther into the trench and see the tripod fish, standing still on elongated fins planted into the seafloor. Eyes blind, patience infinite, mouth open, waiting for the current to deliver life. And you realize patience is not weakness. Patience is strategy. Patience is mastery. Patience is the refusal to waste energy in a world where energy is everything. Then the abyss offers beauty again. Comb jellies drifting like galaxies, refracting rainbow light into eternal black. Beauty with no audience. Beauty for no reason. Beauty is survival itself. And you realize art is not separate from survival. Art is survival when it endures. Near the trench floor, amphipods swarm over scraps, armored with resilience, devouring what falls from the world above, proving that scavengers are not weak. Scavengers are kings of persistence. Scavengers inherit what giants leave behind. And you understand persistence is the truest form of dominance. From below rises a Greenland shark, ancient, vast, slow, its movements glacial, its flesh toxic, its eyes blind with parasites, its age measured in centuries, perhaps half a millennium. And you feel reverence because this shark is older than your civilization, older than your arrogance, older than your myths, and it swims without noticing you, without needing you, because it is eternity disguised as flesh. You drift onward and encounter hagfish, primitive, jawless, slime oozing from their pores, revolting yet eternal, unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. And you realize disgust is irrelevant, because survival does not care what you think. Survival does not need your approval. Survival simply island. Suddenly the water trembles, and a colossal squid glides past. Immense eyes, vast as planets, arms lined with rotating hooks, beak sharp enough to split bone, its presence sovereign, its indifference infinite. And you understand sovereignty is not conquest. Sovereignty is not recognition. Sovereignty is survival so immense it does not require validation. And as it vanishes into black, you feel awe expand inside you, because fear is small and awe is infinite. You rise slightly and pass hydrothermal vents, chimneys spewing black smoke into freezing water, surrounded by tube worms meters long, crabs with hairy claws farming bacteria, shrimp blind yet triumphant, ecosystems thriving on poison, gardens blooming in fire. And you recognize this is not miracle. This is inevitability. This is life reinventing itself endlessly. This is creation in its purest form. Around you drift vampire squids cloaked in velvet, releasing glowing clouds when threatened. Anglerfish swaying their false promises of light, brittle stars carpeting the floor. Sea cucumbers swimming like balloons. Siphonophores stretching like galaxies. Amphipods glowing like embers. And you realize you are not witnessing chaos. You are witnessing scripture. A library of survival written in grotesque forms. Each monster a verse. Each adaptation a hymn. Each grotesque geometry a sermon of endurance. And as these truths sink into you, you no longer see monsters at all. You see teachers. You see masters. You see mirrors reflecting what it takes to endure when comfort is stripped away. And you understand the abyss has never been empty. The abyss has always been full. Full of inevitabilities. Full of revelations. Full of truths the surface could never bear. You are drifting now in waters that feel less like liquid and more like eternity. Waters that have pressed against the earth's bones since before the continents divided. Waters so black that darkness itself feels inadequate as a description. And in this void, the creatures you meet are not just monsters, they are scriptures, each one a living sermon of survival, written in the alphabet of pressure and silence. The first to emerge from the abyssal curtain is the fang-tooth, grotesque teeth longer than its skull, face twisted into a permanent grimace, body armored with scales like volcanic rock, and yet this fish is small, no larger than your hand. Proof again that monstrosity is not measured in size but in adaptation, that true terror is efficiency disguised as deformity. Close behind drifts the stoplight loose jaw, its skeletal body glowing faintly with invisible red beams, striking prey that cannot even perceive its weapon. And you realize, fear here is not about violence but about perception. Fear is about being seen in a spectrum you cannot imagine. Fear is about inevitability written in light. Then you encounter the gulper eel, inflating grotesquely, its jaw cavernous, its stomach elastic, its tail glowing faintly like a star drowned in black water. And though it looks absurd, you recognize genius, because absurdity that thrives is wisdom, and every grotesque line in its form is a signature of survival older than your imagination. Moving deeper, you see the hatchetfish again, metallic body glimmering, belly glowing to erase its own shadow, counter-illumination perfected. And you realize invisibility is not erasure. Invisibility is mastery. Invisibility is sovereignty, and you wish you too could erase the shadows you carry. The barrel-eye fish floats past, transparent skull glowing faintly, its green eyes swiveling inside its dome of jelly, gazing through itself into the world above, and you envy it because it can see through itself, because it can look upward without blindness, because it can perceive reality without ego. And you wonder what it would mean if you too could see through the illusions of your own mind. Drifting ahead is the tripod fish, still planted on elongated fins, blind eyes gazing into nothing, mouth open with infinite patience. And you understand, patience is not weakness. Patience is predation slowed to eternity. Patience is mastery of stillness. Patience is a throne carved into silence. Then comes Deepsteria, translucent parachute of flesh, haunted curtain drifting in uncanny silence, inside smaller fish swirling helplessly, digested by inevitability. And you understand again that time itself is predator here, that inevitability is sharper than teeth, that patience is the cruelest weapon. Suddenly the trench shakes with presence. A Greenland shark glides past, vast body ancient, movements glacial, eyes blind, flesh toxic, age measured in centuries, perhaps half a millennium, and you feel reverence because you are watching time incarnate, watching eternity drift with indifference, watching a sermon older than your language swim by without needing you, without noticing you, without caring. Not far from it, hagfish writhe, slime pouring from their pores, primitive, jawless, revolting, yet unchanged for hundreds of millions of years, and you accept that disgust is irrelevant, because survival has no interest in beauty. Survival requires no approval. Survival is truth stripped bare. Above you a siphonophore stretches endlessly, glowing faintly, a colony of clones functioning as one, longer than whales, longer than legends, and you feel awe, because individuality itself collapses here, Collectivity is strength. Collectivity is sovereignty. Collectivity is survival written across dozens of bodies, sharing one mind. Nearby, a Dumbo octopus flaps its ear-like fins. Soft, playful, delicate, yet thriving in pressure that would crush steel. And you laugh softly because softness is not weakness. Softness is survival. Softness is resilience disguised as elegance. Softness is mastery without violence. The abyss does not pause. It offers brilliance again. Comb jellies refracting rainbows through black water. Glowing galaxies without audience. Beauty existing not for admiration but for survival. And you realize art itself is survival when it endures. Suddenly, the trench trembles with sovereignty. A colossal squid passes, arms lined with rotating hooks, beak sharp enough to split bone, eyes vast as planets. Its presence sovereign, its indifference infinite. And you feel awe expand inside you because here power does not announce itself. Power does not seek recognition. Power is silence. Power is indifference. Power is survival so immense it does not care about your gaze. It vanishes into blackness as though it had never been, leaving you trembling, not from fear, but from reverence, because fear is small and awe is infinite. Around you, amphipods glow faintly, brittle stars twist across the seafloor, sea cucumbers swim like balloons, vampire squids cloak themselves in velvet illusions, anglerfish sway their lures like false promises, dragonfish hunt with invisible beams. Grenadiers scavenge endlessly, hagfish ooze slime, and you realize the abyss is not chaos. The abyss is scripture. Every monster a verse, every adaptation a hymn, every grotesque geometry a sermon carved by silence. And in these sermons you hear truths older than your species, truths written without words, truths whispered through pressure and patience, that strength is not violence, that endurance is beauty, that invisibility is sovereignty, that fear is recognition, that survival is not conquest but adaptation. And you understand finally that the monsters of the ocean are not monsters at all. They are masters. They are teachers. They are mirrors reflecting what it takes to endure when comfort is stripped away. And you realize with humility that the abyss has always been full, and it was you who were empty. And now, in the presence of eternity, you are learning to be full again. You are no longer exploring. You are surrendering. Your body dissolved into the weight of water, your mind stripped of its surface arrogance, your heartbeat merged with the silence of the abyss. And in this final descent, you understand that the monsters of the ocean were never waiting for you. They never needed you. They never noticed you. They were always here, sovereign in their silence, masters in their patience, truths disguised as nightmares. And now they gather around you one last time to remind you of what survival truly means. The first to appear is the anglerfish, its bioluminescent lure swaying like a false promise, its jaws unhinged, its teeth curved inward like the geometry of inevitability. And you know now that deception is not evil. Deception is adaptation. Deception is survival written in light and stillness. Behind it glides the stoplight loose jaw, skeletal, glowing with invisible beams, fangs like glass daggers, and you realize again that light is weapon. Invisibility is power, perception is dominance, and fear is not emotion but recognition of inevitability. The gulper eel drifts closer, grotesque, absurd, inflating its mouth like a cavern, tail flickering faintly, and you laugh softly, not in mockery but in awe, because absurdity that thrives is wisdom, and the abyss crowns only wisdom. Near the trench floor stands the tripod fish, fins rooted like stilts, mouth open, eyes blind, patience infinite, and you bow silently, because you know now that patience is not weakness. Patience is sovereignty. Patience is mastery written in stillness. A barrel-eye fish floats past, transparent skull glowing, eyes swiveling upward within its dome of jelly, gazing through itself into the faint silhouettes above, and you envy it because it sees through itself, because it perceives reality without blindness, because it exists without ego. And you wonder if true vision has always required transparency. Higher above glides the Dumbo octopus, soft, delicate, playful, ear-like fins fluttering gently, and you smile because it proves that softness is survival, softness is mastery, Softness is resilience disguised as dance. Around you siphonophores stretch like galaxies, glowing faintly, colonies, acting as singular minds, and you feel humility because individuality collapses here. Collectivity is truth. Collectivity is sovereignty. Collectivity is eternity. Suddenly, the trench shakes with sovereignty itself. A colossal squid slides into view, eyes vast as planets, arms lined with rotating hooks, beak sharp as inevitability, its bulk sovereign, its indifference infinite. And you tremble not with fear but with reverence, because here power does not require recognition. Power does not shout. Power does not conquer. Power simply endures, and in that endurance lies divinity. It vanishes into blackness as though it had never been, leaving you with awe heavy as stone, because fear is small and awe is infinite. The Greenland shark passes next, vast, ancient, blind, flesh toxic, body scarred, drifting with patience spanning centuries. And you bow again because you are in the presence of eternity, of time incarnate, of an archive older than empires, older than nations, older than memory. And it ignores you because it does not need you, because it is sovereignty embodied in slowness. Near hydrothermal vents, life blooms impossibly. Tube worms meters long, crabs with hairy claws farming bacteria, shrimp blind yet triumphant, bacteria transforming poison into food, ecosystems, writing life in languages the sun never learned, and you realize creation itself is eternal. Extinction is only invitation, death is only banquet, life reinvents endlessly, and the monsters are proof that invention is older than imagination. Around you hagfish writhe, slime oozing, revolting, primitive, yet eternal, unchanged across hundreds of millions of years. And you accept that disgust is irrelevant, that survival has no need for beauty, that survival has no need for your approval. Survival is truth stripped bare. Deep stereo floats past, translucent, parachute of flesh, smaller fish swirling helplessly inside, digested by inevitability. And you know now that inevitability is the sharpest predator of all. Inevitability is the abyss itself. Inevitability is truth. Comb jellies ripple rainbows across darkness. Vampire squids cloak themselves in velvet illusions. Anglerfish sway their lures like false promises. Grenadiers scavenge endlessly. Brittle stars twist across the seafloor. Amphipods glow faintly. Dragonfish strike with invisible beams, and you realize you are surrounded not by chaos but by scripture. Every monster a verse, every adaptation a hymn, every grotesque geometry a sermon of endurance. And as these sermons sink into you, you feel yourself dissolving into humility, because the monsters of the ocean are not monsters at all. They are mirrors reflecting truths you had forgotten. They whisper that strength is patience, that invisibility is sovereignty, that endurance is beauty, that fear is recognition, that survival is not conquest but adaptation, that power does not announce itself but endures silently, that eternity does not roar but drifts without notice. And you know now that the abyss has never been empty. The abyss has always been full, full of inevitabilities, full of revelations, full of truths the surface could never bear. In this final descent, you understand that you were never exploring the abyss. The abyss was exploring you, stripping you of illusions, dissolving you into truths, teaching you that monsters are not mistakes but inevitabilities, not villains but teachers, not nightmares but scriptures. And you feel awe expand within you until it becomes silence, until it becomes patience, until it becomes endurance. And as you surrender completely, you understand at last that the monsters of the ocean were never waiting to be found. They were always here, and now you are with them, not as a conqueror, not as an intruder, not even as a witness, but as silence, as pressure, as patience, as endurance, as part of the abyss itself, infinite, eternal, and full.